Hi, and welcome back to Kush Cooking 101. I'm Stacy, and today I've got a real treat for you. We're going to make turtle brownie bites. It's a really, sounds complicated, but it's a pretty easy recipe.
And what you're going to need to do this recipe is a brownie mix, 3 tablespoons of water, and only a half cup of canna oil, 2 eggs. You're going to bake at 350 for 17 to 19 minutes. For the topping, you need 8 to 10 ounces of caramel pieces, 2 tablespoons of water, and a half cup of chopped pecans.
If you add your oils first, they coat the flour, or in this case, brownie mix, to where the oil can absorb in, and you're not going to get as good of results. So we're going to add our water first and give it just a little bit of a stir, just so it gets into the batter good. All right, that should do it. Then we're going to add our canna oil. Let's make sure you get all that out of there so you get all that good medicine in your finished product. And once again, you're going to just mix it in. You don't want to over mix. And remember, it is important whenever you're mixing any kind of batter to scrape down the edges of your bowl. Okay, and now we're going to start with the eggs. Now, like I said, you want these at room temperature, and you're going to crack them into a separate bowl. And you're just going to beat them just a little bit. You don't have to go gonzo with this. You just want it combined a little bit. There we go. Add the egg. And then you're going to mix it up until it's all well combined. And remember to scrape down the sides of your bowl.
Now you're going to want to make sure that you grease your muffin tin really well. I use butter because I prefer the flavor that it puts into it, but you can also use vegetable oil or even non-cooked cooking spray. But you want to make sure you get a good thick coating on there. Otherwise, you're going to have problems getting the brownies out of the tin once they're cooked. It's really simple to do. I use a pasty brush. You can also use a paper towel dipped in butter or vegetable oil. But when you go to fill the muffin tin, you're going to want to fill the openings between 2/3 and 3/4 of the way full. If you fill them up too much, it cooks out. It rises out over the edges, and you have a really hard time getting them out without tearing them up. And you don't want to tear them up. You want them to look good when they're done. And once you have the pan completely filled, you're going to want to pick it up and just tap it lightly on your table or your counter. Just knock out any air bubbles. That way you don't, everything sets up evenly on the bottoms, so you don't have any problems with them not wanting to stand up. And that's about how it should look. Like I said, between 2/3 and 3/4 of the way. Now you're going to want to make sure that you wipe off the excess that has been spilled on the outside of the openings, because that is going to burn, and it can put a burnt flavor into your brownies, and you don't want that. You're going to bake them at 375 for 17 to 19 minutes. And you can tell when they're done when you insert a toothpick in the center and it comes out completely clean. Now what I do is I take a cookie dough scoop and I make a small impression in the top of each brownie to give room for the caramel and the nuts. Now for your caramel, I have here 10 ounces of cut up caramel candies, and we're going to melt those in a double boiler with 2 tablespoons of water, and you just are going to let that go if you use a double boiler, you don't have to stand on top of it the entire time. You do not have to use a double boiler. You can just use a regular pan. But if you're going to do it that way, you have to stay right on top of it. Otherwise, you will burn your caramel. And nobody likes burnt caramel. Now, I will generally cover it with the lid. Just to let it get good and warm in there. And then once you have it all melted down to where you have a nice, smooth texture and no more lumps, you can then remove it from the heat. And you can pour it into a squeeze bottle. You can use spoons, or I use this candy funnel because it has a spout and a stop on it. Then you just put a little bit of caramel in the center of each of your brownies that you put the depression into. And that's pretty much all there is to doing the caramel. Now this caramel will set to a soft stage. It will still be sticky. It will not set up real hard, because you don't want it to be real hard because it makes it harder to eat the brownie. And then you can either top it with a single pecan, or I prefer to use chopped pecans. And that's really all there is to this recipe, and they are delicious. I can't wait to try one. Now you're going to take a slip of wax paper, put it over the top of the caramel and the chopped pecans, and then you can wrap your turtle brownie bite in saran wrap, and then you can freeze them and take them out whenever you're ready to use them. I suggest you give yourself at least 2 hours for them to completely defrost. I hope you really enjoy these.